What happened when grifts meet? Worlds colliding, can't tell them apart. DeCastro calls out WNN's Daniel Jones as a bad person. Does it take one to know one? Denver Metro Audits storms out of Englewood City Council meeting. Regan Benson promotes goodness with news on Robert the amputee. Plus, would Chille DeCastro have been better off financially with a loss in Maryland yesterday? All this and more on this edition of Auditing Insanity. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast brought to you by ReallyCoolNews. I'm Jim Finch and I'll be your host tonight for news stories on Chille DeCastro, Daniel Jones of the Welsh News Network, Regan Benson, Denver Metro Audits, and a look at the GoFundMe market. We're on a tight schedule tonight, so we'll be moving on to the news as I ask you to focus on GoFundMe, would losing be better for business? Tuesday's GoFundMe race ended the same way it does most days, with our own ongoing expenses fund winning the day and not a dime going to any of the other multiple campaigns associated with Jose Chille DeCastro, leaving one to wonder if DeCastro would have been better off financially if he had been convicted of recent charges. DeCastro spent the day in California, safely away from a potential trial in Maryland that was conveniently thrown out at the start of the day for charges of allegedly harassing former employee Colin Project Constitution Campbell. He also started the day complaining that his viewership numbers went from unbelievably inflated down to the range of a channel slightly bigger than our own would do on a normal day. With viewership that anemic, DeCastro started to panic and blamed the nameless, faceless YouTube for all of the ills of his channel. But his viewers have listened to him complain about YouTube for years now and are numb to it. Sure, it's a threat to his way of life, but honestly, if someone in a similar situation had been buying views to inflate his numbers and suddenly turned his purchasing off, they may have resulted in what DeCastro was allegedly experiencing. It's not that big of a shock. Plus, things were to the point where he expanded to merchandise sales before the supposed loss in viewership. DeCastro has been making a point that he only produced 100 keychains and 100 rubber bracelets in this batch. He has priced each bracelet and keychain at $10 each, though shipping is rumored to be insane. But still, with 616,000 subscribers, why aren't the products sold out by now? If 0.016% of his audience were limited to one bracelet and one keychain per order, you would think he would have an instant sellout. Keychains and rubber bracelets would be the new Tickle Me Chille, and he'd be sold out after making money hand over fist. But DeCastro's crowdsourcing did their best when he was under threat. He raised close to $60,000 this year from fighting sets of charges against him, Press with Rancor, and Wanda Meese. Passing the collection plate around to his audience works when freedom is at stake for somebody. Regarding his scheduled trial in Maryland yesterday, it would have proved everything he's been wanting: a threat to his freedom, unfair charges, trumped-up accusations, and an unfair system that was designed to keep the common man down. With his 6 employees churning out propaganda videos designed to promote his possible loss of freedom, and the campaign slogan, "They're trying to put me away again, donate now to help me defend my total innocence," it would literally have been an invitation to print money. Yet, he had it dismissed on procedural grounds. Didn't promote it at all. Didn't acknowledge it other than briefly on his live stream last night, after it was over. Worse yet, he didn't mention his crowdsourcing campaigns to get rich off his fans in order to replenish the coffers, so he didn't have time to sell keychains and cheap rubber bracelets on the air like a bad pitchman at a state fair. DeCastro has the ability to rile up his 616,000 subscribers to make him money with no return on investment. $5, $10, $20. This is so important you should skip a meal to fund it. Yet he's blown the one opportunity he had to exploit his audience in a way that would have solved his financial problems because he was too lazy to run a freaking campaign. Chille DeCastro, a journalist whose laziness cost him his fortune. On that note, we're not too lazy to pass on telling you that we need your help to keep the very newspaper and newscast you're looking at or listening to right now alive. If you'd like to continue to force me to keep writing this dreadful column each day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds going to keeping lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Benson promotes Robert's recovery. Regan Benson updated the condition of Robert, a homeless man who she saved from freezing to death in Englewood, Colorado, earlier this year. On her live stream Tuesday afternoon, Benson announced that Robert had received his new prosthetic foot and was able to walk around under his own power. He had previously used a mechanical mobility scooter in order to manage his disability. During the broadcast, the YouTuber verbally attacked the United States government for delaying a decision on Robert's disability status and determining if he was eligible for a transfer to a new long-term care facility. Benson had recently announced on her YouTube channel's description that she was ending homeless outreach as that era was now over. It seems that she was keeping up with those she's helped in the past, including Robert, who she was visiting with and took to the store during her live stream. Robert said he didn't remember much about the day that Benson had rescued him in January from living on that park bench in Englewood. Benson took the opportunity to complain about the officers involved in the incident, telling Robert that one of the officers tasered a homeless man for sitting on a park bench in a similar situation to Robert. The YouTuber also got the formerly homeless man to agree that he felt like a grain of sand being blown around by the winds of government and that the country had lost control a long time ago and needed change. Benson eventually found a supermarket and helped Robert out of her vehicle, complaining loudly that they'd have to expedite the trip as none of the supermarkets in the Denver area allowed shoppers to use their bathrooms. Promising Robert a hamburger and fries for lunch if he was good, the former activist for the homeless seemed proud of her progress with Robert and did not share previous complaints about his caregivers at his current facility. In more Benson news, she opted out of a return to the Englewood City Council meeting Tuesday night. Benson had been thrown out of the previous City Council meeting for violating city and state ordinances on public outbursts. It's unclear when or if Benson will return to her self-appointed role as overseer of police activity in Englewood, Colorado. Denver Metro Audits walks out in Englewood. Christopher Denver Metro Audits Cordova walked out of his allotted time during the public feedback period of the Englewood City Council meeting Monday night in dramatic fashion after only reading a few seconds of his prepared comment. Cordova had previously been at the center of changes made by the City Council meetings after he and fellow First Amendment auditor Regan Benson continued to disrupt the public feedback period at the meetings with personal attacks on City Council members, the police, and public commenters. Benson was ejected from the previous City Council meeting, which was set to discuss changes to the public feedback session. She made excessive outbursts and stood and applauded for those who were speaking out against the changes. Cordova followed her out of the meeting. Applauding during the feedback period is a violation of city statute and state law. The changes made by the City Council limit the public feedback period to 90 minutes, with 2 minutes per speaker. No personal attacks on anyone are allowed, a new dedicated media area for media-run cameras, and priority given to new speakers at the meeting. Tuesday's City Council meeting displayed a wider angle on the live feed as speakers approached the podium and a new video screen on the front of the podium. Cordova, making his first speaking appearance since the changes, began reading from an article written by City Council member Steve Ward in the Englewood City magazine addressing First Amendment auditors. The auditor seemed to stutter as he read, "I live in the city of Denver. I'm going to read some of the article written by Steve Ward in the Englewood City magazine. Recently, our city council meetings have seen disruptive public comments from an out-of-town First Amendment auditor, including continuous statements, indicative of personal beliefs. Sorry, having a difficult time here. I'm sorry, I can't continue." The auditor then turned away from the podium, walked to his backpack, and left the city council chamber without further comment. It is unclear if this was a planned piece of performance art as a demonstration by Cordova, who has had no previous problems speaking in dozens of previous appearances at the city council meetings, or if he was truly having problems speaking. Cordova had previously released a 28-minute produced video to his YouTube channel featuring his dramatic verbal assault on a police officer following Benson's ejection from the previous Englewood City Council meeting. This is a developing news story. DeCastro calls out Welsh News Network's Daniel Jones. Fans of Jose Chille DeCastro were surprised on Tuesday when he ended his live stream with an acknowledgement of legal troubles of his biggest trolls, Daniel Jones of the Welsh News Network and Frauditor Reaper. DeCastro, who is famous for never naming trolls or acknowledging transgressions, read a comment from longtime friend Writes On, who announced that Daniel Jones turned out to be a disgraced city councilman arrested for stealing food from food banks. That prompted a response from DeCastro. The YouTuber called Jones his biggest troll before going into a story about his second biggest troll, presumably Frauditor Reaper based on circumstance, who was arrested for shoplifting in the past after criticizing DeCastro. Also unusual for DeCastro, he briefly stated that the charges against him in Maryland were dismissed earlier in the day and that he had been facing charges from a bad person for telephone harassment. That person, his former business partner Colin Campbell, made a statement on Kate Peters' Masshole Troll Mafia server in regard to the case on Tuesday. "Chille is a dumbass. Just because I have a trailer on my dad's property doesn't mean I stay there. That place is trashed and not even in livable condition anyway. And secondly, my driver's license is also out of Maryland with the Maryland physical address and P.O. box, so I'm a legal Maryland resident, and at the time of his video I was staying in Maryland, so that DA is just lazy and didn't do her job. She'd never even contacted me to inquire about my residency when they filed the motion to dismiss based on lack of jurisdiction. She didn't do her due diligence at all and just took his word for it. Very unprofessional. I will be filing a complaint on her as well. I also filed something else today as well, so stay tuned." DeCastro also announced his move from Las Vegas, Nevada, back to California on his live stream. Insiders in DeCastro's camp had leaked to Discord supposed photos of his new studio in the LA area last week, along with his assurance that Maryland charges would be dismissed Monday night. Claiming that he was more at peace now that his new location was unknown to his trolls, DeCastro said that he had lived in fear of his biggest troll, presumably again WNN's Jones, swatting him in his previous location in Las Vegas. The Welsh News Network disbanded in May of 2024 after accusations of impropriety surfaced against channel owner Daniel Jones. Also unusual, DeCastro stopped a rant to close his eyes and say a prayer to invoke the heavens to give him the strength to continue his run for governor and the power to abolish officer safety over our rights. DeCastro, who now claims to have studied journalism in college, demonstrated his impressive journalistic skills to make 2 prank calls to police stations in Lakeland, Florida, and Balcones Heights, Texas, to round out his broadcast. In a public service announcement, DeCastro stated that he was increasing shipping on his new friendship bracelets and keychains by $2, as the bracelets can no longer be sent in a regular envelope. He complained about having to eat the cost of the increased shipping on the 30 bracelets he's sold so far, and encouraged his fans to stop taking advantage of his free products and to start buying his items if they could afford to. DeCastro is expected to live stream again tonight. And we're back. After all the stuff that's in the air tonight, we're going to make a quick escape and exit stage left. No live streams tonight, but we're scheduled to have special guest star NCR News on our all-star panel tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. where it counts, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. on the West Coast. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you all tomorrow.